Imagine living for over 50 years, confident that you know your family, and then in one day everything collapses. Your son is not yours. And that's not the worst part. Linda was sitting in the kitchen, flipping through the mail, when she received an envelope from the lab. A DNA test done as a joke to find out more about her family tree. She hadn't paid much attention to it, but now the papers were in front of her, and her heart was sinking. The blood type doesn't match, she whispered. Something was wrong. Her son, Mark, couldn't have that blood type if she was his mother. It was simple genetics. She couldn't believe her eyes. Maybe it's a mistake, she muttered, grabbing the phone. She called Mark, but he just laughed. Mom, are you serious? Maybe this is a joke. But it was no joke. Linda decided to have the test done again, but this time thoroughly in another lab. And she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and the feeling of anxiety was eating away at her from the inside. A week later, she received a phone call. Mrs. Roberts, yes, the results are in. And I'm sorry, but you are not Mark's biological mother. She held the phone, but all she could hear was a buzzing in her ears. Everything around her swam. She had lived a lie for 50 years. How is this possible? This is her son! She remembers giving birth to him, holding him in her arms in the hospital. She remembers that day. San Francisco, St. Thomas Hospital. She was exhausted after giving birth. She was given a son. Or was it a son? Linda recalled how the nurse had mixed up the badges. She laughing, "Oh, I'm sorry, but don't worry, you will definitely recognize your child." What if it was not an accidental mistake? She opened an old photo album. She looked at Mark's baby pictures. Nothing strange. But now she saw differently. The eyes were not hers. The features were different. She had never noticed because she loved him. But who was he? Linda decided to find the truth. She remembered her friend Betty, who worked at the hospital in those years. "Betty, do you remember the day I gave birth to Mark?" she asked when she came to visit her. "Betty, have you ever heard of a hospital switching babies?" I don't know. Betty turned pale. "Linda, I don't know if I should tell you this, but there was a story." Linda froze. What story?" "The day you gave birth, there was a scandal. A woman claimed that the baby she gave her was not hers. But the doctors said she was just panicking." "Who was the woman?" "I don't remember her name, but her husband threatened to sue." Then everything went quiet. Linda realized that she had to find out the truth. She sat in the car, clutching the steering wheel. Half a century ago, the hospital made a mistake. But it was not just him, it was her life, her son's. Or not hers. She dialed Mark's number. "We need to talk. On and off, how do you live when your past is no longer yours? When the truth about the person closest to you slips from your grasp, leaving you with only fear and guesswork." "Mom, what did you want to talk about?" Linda sat across from Mark in his living room. Coffee was steaming on the table, but she didn't even touch the cup. "I don't know how to say this." She took a breath. "Mark, you're not my son." He laughed. "Mom, have you been watching too many TV shows?" She put the test results in front of him. Mark's face changed. The smile disappeared. He took the papers, read them, then read them again. "This is some kind of mistake." His voice trembled. "This is just nonsense." Linda wanted it to be nonsense. But it was true. "I had the test done twice. At different labs. You're not my son." Mark threw the papers on the table and stood up. "So what do you want now?" "No, Mark. I want to understand what happened." Linda went back in time. She remembered the day in the hospital when she first saw Mark. She was exhausted, high on morphine. The doctors assured her that everything was fine. She believed them. But the woman Betty had talked about. What if she was right? Linda started digging. She went to the old neighborhood where St. Thomas Hospital had once been. The building no longer existed, replaced by a shopping center. She found the hospital's archives, but they were incomplete. Many documents were missing or destroyed. Among the lists of day were two names that matched the date and weight of the babies: Mark Roberts and Jason Volker. She knew the name. She remembered her husband, a George. He used to work with Volker. They were friends, but then something happened. George would come home angry, tense. This Volker. I don't want to have anything to do with him anymore. Why? Linda turned to her friend. Betty Volker. Do you remember anything about him? Betty looked at her nervously. Linda, why are you digging up the past? Because it's still there. Betty sighed. I didn't want to tell you. But Walker wanted to sue the hospital back then. His wife was convinced that their son was not theirs. Linda felt the world swaying under her feet again. Was that Jason? Yes. She realized she had to find him, her real son. Imagine you've found the truth, but it's worse than you could have ever imagined. What if your past is not just full of lies, but also full of death? Linda spent hours at her laptop, typing the name, Jason Walker, into search engines. Elena hundreds of results, photos of different men, nothing that fit. Finally, she came across an old newspaper article. Jason Walker, missing at the age of 25. Last seen in San Francisco. Police believe he was the victim of a crime, but Linda felt her hands go cold. Her real son disappeared. She remembered how her husband, George, had always avoided the subject of children. We just live our lives, Linda. There's no need to dredge up the past. But why was he so tense whenever it came to her childbirth? Linda found the number of George's old friend, Frank. Frank, I need to talk to you about Volker. Linda, stop. You know something, don't you? Frank sighed. Linda, there are some things that are best left in the past. It's about my son. Silence, and then he said George did something. Linda felt fear wash over her. What if George knew Mark wasn't their son? Aletta, what if he knew who their real son was? And what if he had done everything he could to make sure that son was gone? She went home and pulled out some old boxes of George's papers. Bank statements, checks, letters, and one that made her heart stop. George, this isn't right. We can't just forget. If you don't tell her, I will. The letter is signed with the initials, JWWW, Jason Walker, and if so, who made him disappear? If your child is alive but grew up with other people, is it possible to return what was lost? Or will it remain someone else's forever? Linda did not sleep all night. She reread the letter again, flipped through old documents. The name, Jason Walker, did not give her peace anymore. Early in the morning, she went to Betty's house. I need to know everything you remember about Volker. Betty thought about it. His wife's name was Mary. She was a nice woman, but after everything that happened, she didn't talk to anyone. Linda found Mary Walker. She lived in a small town a few hours away. When Linda called her, her voice was cold. I don't do interviews. I might be your son's mother. Silence, and then a voice full of pain come. Mary's house was modest, cozy. There were photos on the walls, and among them was Jason. Linda almost fell over when she saw him. He looked just like her. The same eyes, same features. Mary looked at her intently. Did you know? Anna. Linda was almost in tears. No, I just found out now. Mary told her how she and Jason had fought for the truth for a long time. How the hospital had covered their tracks. I still can't believe he's gone, she said. Linda felt her heart clench. Among Jason's things, Mary showed Linda an old notebook. Why is my husband here? Linda whispered. Mary shook her head. I'd like to know that too. If George had something to do with this, then maybe the truth about Jason's disappearance is even worse than she thought. What if the life you've lived isn't yours? What if someone else has taken your place and your blood lives in someone else's walls? Linda drove home with a blank stare. Jason Walker was supposed to be her son. He was supposed to live with her. He was supposed to grow up in her house. But he grew up in someone else's family. And now he was gone. She stood in front of the mirror, looked at her hands, and thought, I gave birth to a son, and lost him on the same day. She wanted to cry, to scream, to blame someone. But who? Mom, what's wrong with you? Mark's eyes were alert. Linda looked at him. I found his family. Mark tensed. Who's this? Jason Walker. Mark looked away. So, he's dead. He's gone. That doesn't mean I have to forget. What about me? His voice shook. Am I not your son anymore? Linda felt something tighten around her throat. Mark, you're my son, no matter what. He laughed, but it was not a laugh of joy. So my whole life is someone else's. After this conversation, Linda realized that she had to get to the bottom of it. How did Jason end up with another family? What had George done? She found an old lawyer who had worked at the hospital in those years. When she told him who she was, he turned pale. You don't have to dig into this, and I'm already digging. Just tell me the truth. The old man sighed. There was an exchange. Linda held her breath. For money. She felt the ground slipping away from under her feet. Her son had been sold, and Mark is someone else's loss, too. Imagine that you learned a truth that changes everything. But what if this truth is not beneficial to someone? What if someone is watching her? Linda came home late. The apartment greeted her with silence. The light in the hallway was off, although she remembered for sure that she had left it on. Her heart was pounding. You're digging deeper than you need to. Linda turned around sharply. In the darkness, a man stood by the window. Who are you? Her voice broke. The man took a step forward. The man who is telling you to stop. Are you threatening me? Linda felt her throat tighten. His voice was flat, emotionless. Forget about Jason Walker. Did you? Did you kill him? The man smiled. Don't look for answers if you're not ready for them. When he left, Linda stood in the middle of the room for a long time, clutching the phone in her hand. She was being stalked. Someone doesn't want her to know the truth. But she can't stop now. If someone is threatening her, it means the truth is even worse than she thought. If you are threatened, it means that you have reached a dangerous point, but is it worth backing down when the truth is so close? Linda was up all night. The man in her apartment was not just a random thief. He knew about Jason. He knew she was looking for the truth. But who was he? Why would someone be willing to make threats to stop her from finding it? Linda arrived at Betty's house in the morning. Her friend immediately noticed that she looked exhausted. Linda told her about the overnight visitor. Betty turned pale. You have to stop before it's too late. I can't. You don't understand. In those days, the hospital was making a lot of money. If they were really selling babies, someone made a fortune. Madoa, you think he's still alive. If he's still watching you, he is. Mark came in alone. He looked confused and angry. I found my biological mother's address. Linda held her breath. And what are you going to do? See her. She may, you realize. She may not even know about you. Mark smiled bitterly. I didn't know you weren't my mother. Life is fair, isn't it? Linda decided to act. She remembered the old lawyer who had mentioned the word. Exchange. She decided to talk to him again. But when she called, a strange voice picked up the phone. He's gone. How? When? Last night. Linda felt herself getting cold inside. Was it an accident? Or had someone decided to eliminate another witness? If she wanted to find out the truth, she had to act now. But will she have time before she herself is silenced? Now the stakes are even higher. And she has only one chance to find out everything. There is a truth that opens your eyes. There is a truth that makes you live in a new way. And there is the truth that destroys everything. Linda sat in her car, clutching her phone. The lawyer who could tell her everything had suddenly died. Now she had only one chance left, the person who worked at that hospital. Her name was Helen Fisher. Helen was waiting for her in a small cafe on the outskirts of the city. She was a thin, wrinkled woman who looked like she was carrying too many secrets. Linda nodded and sat down across from her. I want to know the truth, Helen sighed. I worked as a nurse in that hospital, and I knew something bad was going on there. The child exchanges. The woman nodded. But not just exchanges, they were sold. Linda felt as if she'd been doused with ice water. Helen looked her in the eye. The children went into the families of rich people. And the parents. Some died in childbirth. Some were told the child did not survive. My son, He was sold too. Yes. Helen looked down. He was supposed to go to another family, but something went wrong. What went wrong? Linda held her breath. Jason was supposed to live with a very wealthy family, but at the last minute, someone switched the document. Your husband. Linda gripped the table. George. Yes. But why? Helen sighed. He knew you wanted a child, and he knew he couldn't give it to you. Yes. He bought Mark. Helen nodded slowly. Linda closed her eyes. Her husband knew everything. The whole truth. He had stolen her son from her and brought her another man's child instead. And now he was long gone, and she would never be able to ask him, "Why did you do that?" The truth destroys. The truth opens your eyes. The truth leaves you alone with a question. What now? Linda walked through the dark streets, feeling neither cold nor tired. Thoughts flew chaotically in her head. George knew everything. He had stolen her son. He had looked her in the eye all her life and remained silent. The phone rang. It was Mark. Linda answered it, but she didn't know what to say. I talked to her. His voice trembled. And she didn't know anything. They told her I was dead. Linda closed her eyes. You told her who you were? Yes. How did she react? She cried. Mark paused, and she hugged me. Linda suddenly felt a bitter pain. Her son had found his real mother, and who is she to him now? When Linda returned to her apartment, a note was waiting for her at the door. Don't dig any further. It's dangerous. She called Helen, or I'm being threatened. Linda, stop. You know enough already. I want to know everything, and Helen sighed. There's one more thing I haven't told you. What? George didn't just buy his son. What else? He knew who he was taking him from. Linda held her breath. Did George know her real son? And if so, what had he done with him? The truth is painful. The truth is scary. But the truth is always the beginning of something new. Linda could hardly breathe. Did George know who he was taking the baby from? Helen was silent. Who was it? Your son. There. Linda felt her heart pounding. Where is he? Paused for a long moment and then said a name. Linda gasped. Her real son? The one who had been stolen from her all those years ago. He had always been there for her. The man she trusted, the man she helped. He even called her his second mom. Linda stood in front of his door, not knowing how to begin. She knocked. The door opened. Her son, the real one. He looked at her in surprise. Linda, she smiled through her tears. Hello, son. There were no perfect words. There was no instant reconciliation. But there was a feeling that there were many more stories to tell. And most importantly, there were no more lies. Now they could build everything from the beginning. Together.